guys. So it's time to dig into the problem of keys and unique React elements. First of all, in the static children, because it's in our case it doesn't work either, and then dig into the dynamic children. So as I said, the problem is that there is no way to uniquely identify a React element. Therefore, if there is a type mismatch, even if the given React instance is present in both the alternate and the work in progress trees, there is no way to uniquely identify what needs to be like updated and what needs to be recreated. So to have a look at what's going on, so what we have here, the RFID children is like sort of a cleaned up version of the create element function call. So JSX will be eventually React create element call, and React create element will get us back an object with a field of type and props. So if I just console log out, the problem with that here the length of this array varies based on how many elements we have, which is kind of makes sense, right? Because that's the point. But so for example, if I have 4 elements, okay, let's just refresh. So that's actually we have 5 here. So we have 5 elements, right? That's the main stuff. So we have this meaningless component, that's the first. Then we have a bunch of either class-based or functional component, and we have a button. So that's 5. But if I unmount it, then we'll have 4. That's the very same thing. It's just obviously instead of 5 we have 4. But we want to have a way to actually so what we want is to have an array of 5, but instead so the zeroth element should be null or something like that. And actually when you have your JSX as a row JSX, you actually have 5 there. So to prove this, let's go to the create element function, and let's get rid of this console log for now. And so you have type, you have config, and you have the rest of the arguments with this operator. So if we console log the row children now, yeah, but you might need to that part I need to start everything all over. And yeah, whenever we modify the create element, that needs to be done. So it's undefined. Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, obviously it's undefined because there was no declaration. Okay, so that's the one. So we have 5 here. So if I unmount it, you see we have 5 here, but this is false. The row children 0th element is false, but the main difference is that simply it preserves the length of the array, and it kind of makes sense because it's just an expression. So if we coming back here, that is an expression, right? So it's still an element, it just needs to be expressed, and it can vary based on the value of this data visible. So when you evaluate on the second cycle and I press the button, it will return false. But when you evaluate it on the first, it will return normal React element, which will result in an object with a field of type and props. But actually it turns out that it just filtered out the false is filtered out. So if we're not filtering out the false, then what happens is just simply get to the map function. Now obviously if we if we get to the map function, so because false is not instance of an object, it's just a primitive value, it will simply just get passed to the create text element, which will throw an error because there cannot be a create text element with the value false. I mean, there might be, but it will not produce great results. So we need to modify this map function a bit so it will not blow up our program. So simply return this one, but if false, like false, just simply return maybe null. Yeah, sorry, if c equals false, just return null. So expect nothing to be changed. For now, because nothing evaluates false. But what we can do now is come here, and I think it might throw errors later on, and also we need to restart this bit. Okay. Okay. So now let's unmount this. Okay, so cannot set property sibling length. Okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But now you can see that here in the 103 line, we actually, when I pressed unmount, it received an array with the same length. So it's 5, just the first element is null. And it says it cannot set property sibling undefined because it cannot create a fiber out of an invalid React element. So we can actually solve this issue by just simply I don't know, for example, filtering out. So elements, because they are React elements, element, not equal null. I think that should do the job, right? So it will go through, but we fallen back to 4. We must have fallen back to 4 somewhere here. Yeah, we've fallen back to 4, but it's like absolutely fine, because the reason why we've fallen back to 4 because we have filtered out the null. But now okay, so now comes the interesting part. Now we can give our elements another field which can be indexed. So let's just experiment how we can do it the best way. So we map element, and we can return everything there, element, and the index should be index, right? So it's okay. Oops, nope, I don't want to do that. So now if I see either of the children here, map element.index, where is the 4? I don't know why it did not attached. Because I'm having all the things there, and I just simply put in index on there. Maybe it just didn't refresh the thing. No. Why it's not happening? I save this. So verify children. Map element. That's interesting. type. So it's in 105. Oh, now they have the index. They have the index. Okay, I think it just did not get updated. Okay, it's weird why it took that many time. That's so long. Okay, so anyways, you see that now we just simply mapping over. We have the index there. So even so, if I now unmount it, I might, yeah, if we need to have the mapping before the filtering. Okay, so now the important part is, although we have a 4 now, yeah, although we have a 4 now, index, okay, that's interesting. Why does it have an index of 0? It shouldn't be the case. So row children, I think I'm seeing the wrong thing. Yeah, because they are native DOM elements. Okay, sorry, I watched the wrong thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry, my bad. So just ignore everything that I said here, although probably for the most part it was fine. Okay, so what's happening is, like, I clicked on unmount. It returns a false in the row children in the create element, because that expression now evaluates the false. So now, when we come here, it's 5 element in the children. One of them is false, the 0th index. The rest of them are fine. And now what we are doing is we simply attaching an index onto everything except it's not null, and then we filter out the null, because from nulls you can't create fibers. So what happens is that although we have 4 elements, because we have 4 children that will need to be processed, like that's expected because we changed the React element 3. But now we have an additional property, which is index. So we now preserving the original order and the original index of the elements. So the zeros is like, so that's why I'm, at least that's the terminology in the source code, that they have sort of a function that updates slot, which I like to think that terms, even if it's not appropriate. Now you have slots for the React elements. They are either filled or they are not. So in the first case, it's there, an element is there with this meaningless component div, right? But if you click on unmount, then it will, the JSX will evaluate the false. Obviously we can't do anything with that, but we can preserve the order and the length, so we kind of using this as a slot, and we are aware of that the first item will need to be matched with the alternate 3's first index, and that way we know, and we have a way to uniquely identify elements if we change the reconciliation a bit. I hope it's quite clear why we need this index. So we need to change and modify this a lot in order to make it happen. So first of all, we will need an index on both of the first just put them to null everywhere. So we need an index to every fiber. Okay, and now okay, that's actually an interesting thing how to do. So in order to make it somewhat easier, so there will be a lot of finds and lookups. So what React does is they are creating a hash table for the children, because if you think about it now, if we have indexes, we don't have to rely on simply this statement here that we are either checking the number of elements. So the number of elements, so that if the index is less than the number of elements, that's the part when you're checking the work in progress tree, because that represents the elements, and from the elements you will create the work in progress tree, and the alternate is representing the current tree. So you need to check both of them, and you need to keep track that are they identical in length, or one of them is actually shorter or longer than the other. But now we only have to do is checking the indexes, because now we have the indexes. So first of all, let's put all the alternate to map, I suppose. So I'm just sketching out things. So let element map equals new map, and I think I don't know the implementation of this map, but basically JavaScript objects are sort of a hash table, so you can do like this is basically something of a map. You can access it with Jesus, what I'm doing. So let oops, I have no idea what I'm doing. And we can access d.f in this way, or so this is basically a hash table of some sort if you want to use it that way. I'm just using the map because in React source they are using map, and that might be like a better way to do is probably it's more performant probably, and it has all the functions that you'd expect a hash table, hash map has. So for example, if you used any, like I only used Java before, but I kind of get used to the methods of put if absent or something like that. So it has and it also has iterators, so it's a bit more convenient to do things with that. So anyways, that's not the point. So that's element map. What we want to do is we want to have a while loop. So the alternate is simply, so we have fiber alternate, child alternate. That's the first alternate. So until we, and let's actually use let alternate for element map. So we just, I'm gonna use this for creating the element map. Alternate. So while alternate map for element, what we want to do is we want to have the element map, and I don't know what it put or element put. What method does it have? On it clear get set. I think the set is the put. So key will be alternate for element map. So that is a fiber, and we just declared that every fiber will have an index. So that's gonna be our key, and the fiber will be the actual fiber. So we'll alternate for element map. Okay, and what we want to do is alternate element map will be equals to alternate. So we want to have all the alternates, and basically all the alternates are the siblings. So alternate for element map is going to be alternate for element map dot sibling. So it's either going to be another fiber, or it's going to be undefined. In case it's undefined, the while loop ends. And we put everything in this map. Now you might ask, but we have all the indexes set as null. So let's first address that issue. Okay. So I think it's just simply, if it's an update, where is the update index? So if it's an update, then that's an easy way, so because we just need to have alternate.index. Every other case, it's basically a placement. So what we need to do is we need to grab the element.index, because now we attached an index to the element. So just a normal type and props, now we have an index. So we can grab the index from there. Okay, so now we have element index, and we must have another one here. Element.index. Okay. So what we can do now is let's just think about it. Let's go here and see how it will change. So element and element.alternate, that's a placement. And this might be a bit more challenging than I thought. So let's keep the other while loop and try to create a new one. Okay, so there will be a few scenarios, right? So while, okay, so while, there's definitely something for now. I'm gonna iterate through all the elements, and it's just some, first of all, if that's all that it's gonna be, then we can change it to a for loop, because that's eventually a for loop with a while loop. We use the while loop here only to have this other alternate check. So what we need to do is we need to have the element there. We need to grab the element. So now we have the element here, and a good way to start would be to check if there is an alternate with the same index, because now we're just simply assuming that if the element index and the alternate index matches, they are the same one. So actually that's why we need the map, because with the map the lookups are much faster and easier. So let's have something like let current index, and yeah, it might be confusing. So that index here is just simply the index of the array, and current index is the unique identifier. So I'm just gonna put unique ID. Okay, so current index. That's gonna be sort of a key when we get to the dynamic children. So current index equals to element.index. So what we can do is we can grab the let current alternate. I will get to better naming conventions once we have a working implementation. So current alternate will be equals to, and now we're gonna utilize our map. So element map and get or has. I think it has a has method. So it's, for now we're just gonna see if it has. Okay, so now we're checking if there is an alternate, right? And now we have a pretty clear branching. So if current alternate, that means that it's clearly gonna be an update, because it is present in the current tree, which we call in the alternate, and the work in progress, which we don't have a fiber representation yet. We are here to create the fibers. So in this case, new fiber. So that's going to be a placement, right? Just to check that we're on the same page. An update. Of some sort. So now what we need to do is we still need to do these type checks, because if the or not, yeah, because if they are at the same index, and if they are the same index, same slots if you like, and they have different types, then they still needs to be a placement and deletion instead of an update. So we still need to do this check. So if current alternate and element dot type alternate, but element dot type, and it's a current alternate, I'm gonna use this current alternate dot type not equals, then we need to have this kind of logic, which is quite daunting. So new fiber will be, so the index is the current index. We have this props, element props. I think the rest of them are just fine, except the current alternate needs to be here. Okay, so that's the case. Yeah, okay, so now we have an else if. We're just simply copy pasting the thing, but instead it matches. Then comes the normal update process, which is this one. Yep, here. Again, current alternate. Okay, now we have that. Okay, so that's the update covered, right? So if it sorry, that has alternate. Yeah, I will clean this thing up, I promise, pinky promise. Has alternate equals to has, and it will be a get. So has alternate. Has alternate. Okay. Okay. So now comes the part where we say else if. Just simply has alternate not. Then you need to create a new fiber. And now comes the placement part. Okay, now this is the placement part. Okay, everything is fine. So now, if you think about it, we covered the placement, we covered the updates. So now we need to cover somehow the deletion. So what we can do if we can pretty much, so if we find an index in the element map, we process whatever needs to be processed, right? And then we can simply remove it from the map. So element map, remove, delete, yeah, current index. We can simply remove it from the map, and then whatever remains in the map, that simply means that there is no corresponding element in the work in progress representation. So that indicates that it just simply needs to be deleted. And we can do that with I'm always confused if it's is this a for in or for off loop. One is them for let's so let alter let for deletion. Let's drive it in. Maybe it's an off. So we need element map, and this is an iterator of. I think we can get away with simply the values, because values will return all the remaining fibers. Well, I think it's in because pretty are not complaining. So what we need to do is this part. We need to put the effect tag on them. Just simply for deletion now. Effect tag and fiber. Effects push for deletion. So it's just simply whatever remains that will simply means that you need to delete that thingy. Okay, but still there are a few things we need to take care of, and one of them is assigning the new siblings and childs. So we don't need the alternate. We don't need to keep track of the alternate sibling because we are now using a map. Also, we need to take care of this. And how to do that? And how to do that? Maybe. Okay, let's just first Control C, Control V, everything from here to just before we increment the things, which is here, right? Okay, so alternate, we don't need them. So if index is 0, then fiber child then equals new fiber, and else if element previous fiber sibling new fiber. Okay, I think it might be okay. So let's console log these stuff out. Okay, syntax wise it seems alright. And let's give it a go. Okay, so the placement part, let's just actually make sure that, because we had issues with previously that it's not working, so I just wanna console log here that hey ho, and the hey ho is there. So the placement part is pretty good. Well, it still does things. Okay, so this is like something. Okay, let's check the increment. Okay, that works just fine. Okay, now comes the thing that the right reason why we did this. So unmount component, and it does nothing. Okay, so that's not good. Unmount component should have unmounted things. So it has to do with deletion, I suppose. Okay, and get rid of all the other console logs just for now. So it's all index.js20. Okay, so I wanna get rid of this here because it's quite confusing. And restart our server. Okay, so unmount, nothing gets created. So we have a problem with deletion, quite a big one. Quite a big one. So element map dot values, or maybe it's an off. That's embarrassing. I have no idea. Yeah, it's an off. Okay. Well, yeah. So now unmount works magically, right? It deletes the stuff, which is pretty good because, as you can see, we have the console for deletion, and that's the 0th index. It preserved the index, and it's marked for deletion. So it's working. The whole transition was quite smooth. Now comes the interesting part, whether it preserves state. So in the previous one, it got deleted and the new one was recreated in the same cycle. So if I click on unmount, I expect 25 to be there, and it is. So now we solve the, and actually it surprisingly went well. We solved the issue of identifying unique elements, and now first of all we solved the issue of performance because the elements not get recreated all the time. It's just a simple update cycle, but more importantly it's now reliable because instead of recreating stateful components, now it updates the stateful component. So we're in pretty good shape. I'm gonna stop the video now because there are quite a lot of going on. It's 40-minute mark almost. So in the next video we gonna clear up the stuff, commit to GitHub, address one issue, and then dive into the keys. basically. But I think the keys should be quite I mean that's gonna be the basic approach for keys, but just a little tweak. So thanks for listening, and see you next time, guys.